Hi everyone, so welcome to week 5 of digital drawing classes. So this week is the last week of our AutoCAD lessons. This week, if you can look at the schedule, this week we'll be looking at how to download CAD maps from Digimap. We'll be looking at how to manipulate CAD Digimap information, how to export Digimap into other softwares, and how to scale from a PDF. So hopefully this week will allow you to pull together all of the information that we have looked at over the previous month and allow you all to draw both your case study drawings and also any site information that you may need for Studio. So the first thing to do with this week is to go onto a Digimap website. So if you Google Digimap, here you go. The website that we're trying to go to is digimap.adena.ac.uk. A lot of you will have been on this website previously. Some of you may need to register for it in order to access it. I'm sure that some of you have downloaded PDFs before for site information. Some of you may have also downloaded CAD information, but today we're going to look at how to download CAD information that we can manipulate in AutoCAD. So the first thing I'm going to do is log in. And like I've just said, if you haven't registered before, then you may need to register with your university address before you are able to log in. You can see I've already logged in previously, so it's remembered my organization. And I'm just going to log in using my information here. As soon as I've used my university email address and password to log in, we get to the home page. And the thing that we're going to be looking at today is the Ordnance Survey information. So if you click on Ordnance Survey, you get a series of options. You get Roam, Data Download, and Web Services. We want data download today because we're going to be downloading some CAD maps, and you can see here for GIS and CAD. So if we click on Data Download, we get this initial screen. Now with this screen, you can either use your mouse to zoom in, a little bit like we do in AutoCAD, where you point your cursor where you want it to go and then scroll in and out. I will try and find the university using this method. So I can see here's Tower Bridge, here's Whitechapel. So we're getting a little bit closer to our university. Here's Aldgate East and Aldgate. So I know from memory that this is the university building. The other way that you're able to find a location is to simply type in a place or a postcode here and search, and it will give you a number of options as well. So for example, if we type in Aldgate and search, it's giving us an Aldgate in Rutland, which is the wrong one. Let's see if it gives us anything. Here we go. So there are lots of options here. Farringdon Station, not quite correct. So I'm going to stick with the one that I found by zooming into London. But if you have an exact postcode or an address, then you can use this box in the corner to find your location. Now, when we have the location, the first thing that we need to do is we need to tell Digimap how much information we want to download. You can do that by either drawing a shape or a rectangle. Obviously, nearly all of the drawings that we're going to be doing will be rectilinear. They'll be on a standard size piece of paper. So you're able to click, drag the box across, and then click again. And I've shown Digimap that I want to download this amount of information. And then when we've selected the area, the thing that we need to do is we need to click on OS master map, which is Ordnance Survey Master Map. And this is where we can tell Digimap what type of map we want to download. Now you can see here there are lots of different types of map that are available. The one that I found that is most informative, best for us and what we're looking for in terms of site information, is the topography map. So if you click on topography and go all the way down, I would also recommend having a look at all of these maps and maybe downloading some examples to see if there is anything that is useful for you in your project with all of these. You can download them at the same time, so you can click 2 or 3 and then add them all to your basket. But today we're just going to look at the topography map. So I have ticked that single option and I'm going to add that to the basket. Then as soon as you click Add to Basket, it gives you a couple of options. This is where you're able to choose what format and what layers your map has. So I'm going to download November 2019. I think that's the most recent, obviously the most recent mapping that they have. Format, it's really important that we choose DWG. So DWG is the AutoCAD file format, a little bit like JPEG or PDF. DWG is the AutoCAD format. And then theme, I choose plan. I always choose plan in terms of the theme. Again, I would suggest trying both and seeing what format and what theme you prefer. But from using Digimap in the past, plan is the theme that I'm going to choose. And then finally, this is all of the information that can be included within the Digimap. So you can have boundaries of local authority, so you can have a line that shows the boundary between the City of London and Tower Hamlets, for example, so I'll keep that on. Buildings, obviously important. Heritage and antiquities, I'm going to turn that off because I don't want to have that layer of information on my plan. Land, rail, road, structure, terrain and water, I'm going to keep all of those on. Again, you know, if you do choose to have all of these, then you can turn them off later in AutoCAD. So I'd play around with trying a few different options and seeing what type of plan works best for you. That may depend upon what type of project you're doing. And you can give the plan a download name. So I'm just going to call it London Map. And then the final thing that you have to do is request the download. As soon as you request the download, Digimap will tell you that the download has been requested. You'll get an email to your university account saying that the download has been requested, and then about 5 minutes later, normally a bit quicker, you will get another email asking you to download the map that you have requested. Okay, so now that I have requested my Digimap from Edina, I have gone to my Gmail account, and the email has been received to say that the map is ready to download. That took about 3 minutes to receive. I think sometimes if Digimap is really busy or the size of the map that you've requested is really big, it can take a bit longer, but it generally doesn't take more than 5 minutes. And when you receive the email, there's a little button down here to click to download your map. When you click on that, it should take you to the download page. It's just asking me to log in order to download, so I'll just log in again. And then once I've logged in, I'll be able to download the map. If you have requested a number of maps, then they should all appear here. And when I click it to download, it vanishes into the corner of my screen. As soon as that's downloaded, I'll be able to open it and show you how to scale it and how to manipulate it within AutoCAD. So here's my download. You can see this is the folder. It appears in a folder with some coding and some licenses. If we click into this folder again, there are more licenses on how to use the CAD information, but this is the file that matters for us. So if we click on this map, this is the map that we requested from Digimap. So this is the map of Aldgate that we asked for. The first thing I'm going to do is copy the entire thing. So I've selected the whole thing, I've drawn a bounding box around it, and then I'm going to edit, copy, and we're going to paste it into the file that we have been using so far, because we have some layers set up in the file that we've used so far. So we're going to use that again. This is a map that I dropped in a few seconds ago, so ignore that that was there. This is our file. You can see, if I zoom in, here's the file that we have been working with. What I'll do is I'll go to this instead. It's the same file, but it has the layers selected as we did it last week. So I'll drop it into this file, which should be the file that I worked on last week when we played with our layers and we created our thick line, our thin line, our medium, and our grey line. So all of those lines are there for us, all of those layers are there for us to be able to use. So now I'm going to paste the map that we have downloaded into our drawing. I'm going to move it slightly away from the things that we drew so far. Now you can see the map has come in really small. That's because this map is in meters as a unit, and this drawing is in millimeters. So there's a difference of 1,000 because there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter. So in order to make this map the correct scale, what we have to do is select the whole thing, and then we can either go to this modifying box and use the scale button here, or we can just type in SC and hit enter. And then it says select our base point. Now remember, the base point is the point at which the map is going to grow from, is going to scale from. So it doesn't really matter where you choose the base point, as long as you know where it is and you anticipate that it will scale from that point. And then it says choose the scale factor. So that is 1,000, and then hit enter. Now, if we zoom out, we should see our map. So now that map is at the correct scale because we have made it 1,000 times bigger, which means that the thing that AutoCAD thought were millimeters are now meters. I'm going to move our drawing away so you can see the size of our building, the thing that we've been working on for a few weeks in comparison with our map of Aldgate. So this is what your map will look like when you download it. Obviously you can download a smaller area if you wish, but I've downloaded this really big part of central London to show you what type of information you're able to download from Digimap. And I've seen from other people's work already that some people have been downloading, particularly if you're in Studio 4 and you're looking at the entire Docklands, then some of the maps that people have been downloading are really big. I've got quite a good laptop and you can see it starts to slow down slightly when we use this map. So if you have a really big map, then it might start to slow down your computer a bit, and you should anticipate that. So the benefit of having this information in AutoCAD is, first of all, we can manipulate every single line. So we can select individual lines and manipulate them. We can use this to draw from. We can use this as a site plan. And we can also clear up this map so we can remove any layers that we don't like. You will see, if you look in the layer, I'm going to type layers just so we can see them really clearly. If I type layer, you can see that before we dropped in this map, we had 5 or 6 layers: thin line, medium line, thin line, grey line, and a couple of others. You can see now there are lots and lots of lines that have appeared. Building line division, inland water line, rail line standard gauge track. So all of these layers are AutoCAD layers. that have come in with the map. Sorry, Digimap layers that have come in with the map. It's made our layer choice a little bit more confusing. You can see our grey line is there, but it's kind of hidden within everything else. Our medium line is there, but it's hidden again, and there's our thick and our thin line. If I close that for a second, what we can do is, in order to clear this map up, we can either make the layers visible or invisible using our layer dialog box that we've just had open. But sometimes it's a bit confusing because there are so many layers that we don't actually know what something is going to look like when we turn it on or off. So if I just type layer again and hit enter, it opens this box. Now you can see if I remove political, administrative, line, county, you can see something had disappeared there. So that was obviously that layer. So if you click on this little button, it stops it from being visible. Do it again, there's another one that's gone invisible. So we could just go through, I'm quite confident with all of the layers that say political or administrative, that they're not going to be something that I want to have on my plan. Rail text, don't think I want that on my plan. I'm going to say possibly anything with text I won't need, because I don't want words on my plan. But I'm just using a bit of an educated guess to turn off layers that say text. Some of these things, I don't know if I turn them off, what's going to happen to the plan. So the other way of being able to select layers, you can already see it looks a bit clearer, but I want to be able to remove things like this blue thing I don't want to have on the drawing, and these little crosses I don't want to have on the drawing as well. The way that you do that is you use the isolate and unisolate tools up here. We used them last week. I used them to explain why it's good to put things on different layers. I said that you can have a really complex architectural drawing, and you can have a drawing that shows, for example, wiring in a building, and you can turn that layer on and turn it off according to who you're showing the plan to. So if you're showing a plan to a client, you can turn the wiring off because they don't need to see it. And if you're showing it to an electrician, they may want to see it, and therefore you can turn it on. It's very similar with this. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this layer, and you can select multiple layers to isolate at the same time. So I'm going to select this, and all you have to do is select one thing on that layer, and then AutoCAD will know that you want to select that layer. And I'm going to select the water, and then I'm going to come up to the top right hand corner and click on isolate. And now you'll see that everything has disappeared apart from everything that was on those layers. I'm going to be really careful here. I'm going to select everything, and I'm just going to make sure that my plan wasn't there and that I'd selected it by accident, which it isn't. So now that I've selected all of these things, I can delete them and then unisolate the rest. And you can see that all of the names have gone, the water has gone, and the little crosses have gone. They were little spot height locators. So they've all disappeared, which is great. I'm just going to move my plan right over so it's nowhere near my map, so I don't delete anything by accident. I'd say the last thing that I want to get rid of on this plan are these orange and green lines. So I'm going to select an example of both of them, click isolate, and then you'll see that only the orange and green lines are left. I've selected them, press delete, and then unisolate. And now, okay, so this was a different type of green line. I think this could be the last thing that I delete. The tree, isolate, and then only those trees will remain. It makes it really easy to select. I've selected them, I've deleted, and then I'm going to unisolate. And now for me, I have a plan that is nice and clear. It has all of the information stripped off that I don't need. All that remains are roads and buildings. But if you remember the conversation that we had last week, different colours print as different thicknesses. And the way that we can manage that is by selecting different layers. So if we look at our plan again down here, I wanted the pink lines to print really thick. So the pink line, if I click on it, is the thick line. The green line is the medium line, and the red line is the thin line. And you can see here as well, there's a grey line as well. So I'm going to use those 4 same layers to be able to affect the line thicknesses of this plan. And just like we did with the deleting, we can use the isolate and unisolate tools in order to change layers. So if you click on an example line, a line that is you are confident that is of a building, we can isolate, and now you can see all of the architecture, all of the buildings have remained. That's actually a really interesting plan in itself, showing all of the built environment. But we're going to use it in order to select every line. And then I'm going to come up to this, the top right-hand corner of my drawing, and I'm going to select, go all the way to the bottom and select thick line. I've selected my thick line, which means that all of the buildings are now on the thick line. You can see it's vanished. The reason it's vanished is because my computer is struggling a little bit to process it all. The fact that it's vanished doesn't mean it's deleted. It just means that my computer has decided to hide it in order to make the process a bit easier for itself. So I have changed it to thick line. And then the final thing to do is, instead of having it as red, which it said red before, I clicked on it and I changed it to by layer, which means that it will have the color that you have told AutoCAD to assign to that layer. And now that I've done both those things, changed it to thick line and changed the color to by layer, I can unisolate, and you can see all the buildings have turned pink, which is great, because it means that when it prints, they're going to be a nice thick line. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, there is a line here, you can see this is part of a building, but instead of it being the outline of a building, it is a division. So it's a party wall or some sort of dividing wall between 2 buildings. So I'm going to select one of those, I'm going to isolate, and then all of these lines, I think I want these to be thin. It's interesting to have that information on the plan, but it doesn't necessarily, I don't want it to be the most visible thing on the plan, so I'm going to change that to a thin line. And instead of by red, I'm going to say by layer. They're both the same, because the thin layer is red, but changing it to by layer means that if you ever change the attributes of the layer in the future, they'll automatically change, and then unisolate. So you can see now, these are a nice thin line. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the road layouts. I'm going to isolate, and you can see here's all of the road. And I'm going to make these a medium line. Here it is. And see, it said white, but I'm going to turn it to by layer. So now that when I look at my drawing, I know that green is medium. The line type is AutoCAD dash. I'm going to change that to by layer as well. So that means that it's going to be the line type and the color that I want it to be. Unisolate. There you go. So my drawing is nearly completed. These are obviously railway tracks, so I'm going to select those and isolate. So I want these to be grey. So I'm going to, now that they're all selected, choose my grey line, by layer, and then unisolate. So they should be, there's my grey lines. And then the last thing seems to be this kind of thing, which looks like a type of infrastructure. So I'm going to select all of those, and I'm going to make those all grey. So you can do this, it's a little bit of a labour of love, but you should do this for every layer that you have on your drawing. And obviously when you're downloading your Digimap, you are able to you are able to choose whether you download all of the layers, or whether you untick administrative boundaries and antiquities and things like that. So you can choose how many layers you download when you download your drawing from Digimap. So that's my plan done in terms of choosing the line weights and assigning layers. So this drawing for me is now ready to be used as a CAD drawing. Now I could either print this on my using my layout, or I could export it and open it in another piece of software. So one of the pieces of software that we have talked about is Illustrator. Illustrator is fantastic for being able to hatch a vector drawing. So this is a vector drawing. So Illustrator is brilliant for being able to hatch drawings and to make vector drawings look really beautiful. If I just find an example of an Illustrator drawing. This is an Illustrator drawing. So you can see all of these different hatches, the lines, the bricks, the little dots here, the thin green, all of these, the little dots up here, these are all Illustrator hatches. So you can imagine if you do want to have a drawing that is hatched, but has hatched in a kind of in an attractive way, then Illustrator is definitely better than AutoCAD. Again, this is an Illustrator drawing, so you can see you can manipulate line weight and different types of hatch. This is the same again. So I would recommend completing a drawing like this in Illustrator. The way that you would do that is to export this as a DWG, and then you can open it in Illustrator, or as a PDF, and you can open it in Illustrator as well. So you can save as here, and then obviously use the drop-down list to choose what format. So here I would choose a DWG drawing, and you would be able to open that in Illustrator, or PDF it again, and you can open that in Illustrator. The other way of manipulating this would be in Photoshop. So again, we will be looking at Photoshop in the coming weeks. So I would say that if you want to do a drawing, for example, if your site is here, which is where the old building was, then obviously you can use this in order to start drawing your building on site. If you want to use this in order to create a site drawing, then I would recommend taking it out of AutoCAD and using this information in either Photoshop or Illustrator, both of which we will be looking at in the next couple of weeks. So one of the final things that people have been asking about in terms of using information and using plans is how to import a PDF to scale. So there are a few ways of doing it. So we're going to look at that now. First of all, in order to insert a PDF, the first thing that you need to do is go to Insert, and then here there are a number of options. A raster image is like a JPEG. So some of you, if you have a case study project, it may be that the only information you have is in JPEG format. So we'll have a look at how to do that shortly. If you have a PDF, then if you click PDF underlay, and if you click on your PDF, so find, go through your computer and find the PDF. Mine's on my desktop in preparation for this, but your PDF may be saved somewhere else, hopefully not on your desktop. The first way to try and insert a PDF is to click on the PDF and press open. And as soon as you do that, you have this dialog box. Now specify on screen as the insertion point is fine. All of this input angle as 0 is fine. the path. Having a full path is fine. Here, there are two options. You can either specify the scale, the size of the PDF on the screen, or you can allow AutoCAD to use the size of the PDF to insert it accurately. The way that you do that is to input your scale factor and have that as a 1, and then press attach. And now here's the PDF. I'm going to insert it just above my plan, press insert. So here's my PDF, and you can see that the PDF, you can select it and move it like anything else. You can copy it over, you can rotate it like anything else. So you select, and then you can rotate, you can select, and you can, here you go, you can select and rotate. You can do anything with this PDF like it's a like any other object in AutoCAD. The beauty of having a PDF is that if I try to draw something, PL, and hit enter, you can see that it doesn't snap perfectly, but AutoCAD does snap to these lines. So it means that AutoCAD recognizes where these lines are and snaps to them. So it makes drawing over something a lot easier. So you can see there's a line that I've drawn, snapped over. If you're going to trace a PDF, then one thing that can make it more helpful is if you click on the PDF, this little dialog box pops up from the top, and you can set the transparency. So if you set the transparency as quite transparent, it just means that obviously when you're drawing, your line is more visible. So that's something that is quite useful. The first thing that we need to do is check the scale. And obviously if you have an architectural drawing, then you should have a scale bar, which is very helpful. So with this plan, we have a scale bar. You can see this is 0 meter, 1 meters, 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters, 6 meters, 7 meters. So what we should be able to do is find out what scale this is, and we can do that by using the dimension tool. So we go dimension, linear, and then we click here, wait for it to snap. So obviously this should be 1000 because it's 1 meter, but let's see how big it is. So I'm going to have to zoom in a lot because the size of the font is tiny, but that is 999.1. So I'm going to say that is as accurate as we're going to get for inserting a PDF. So here 1 meter is 1000 millimeters in my drawing, which means that I know that this is a drawing that is properly to scale. If you're when you dimension, if your numbers are really small, what you can do is go to dimension and then go down to dimension style, click on dimension style, click on this little wheel when you have your style selected, modify, and then up at the top there's one that says text, and at the moment my text height is 0.18. If you change that to 100, okay, close, and just see whether that helps. So what I've done here is just increase the text size slightly, perfect, and you can see that this is 999.1 and it's supposed to be 1000. So I think if we allow for a little bit of discrepancy, 1/1000th off is pretty good, and you can see here it's supposed to be 7 meters and it says it is 7 meters. So I'm really happy that this PDF is to scale. Now that doesn't always happen. So if I try and insert another PDF, insert this PDF, and instead of input scale factor, just in order to incorrectly insert the PDF at an incorrect scale, just to show you how to rescue it if your PDF does come into a different in at a different scale. I'm going to select the scale on screen. So this is what happens when you select it on screen. You get to choose how big it is. So this is a plan. Again, we have a scale bar down here. You can see 0 to 5 meters. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to linear, so dimension, linear. Wait for it to snap here. Pull it over, snap at the end. So this should be 5 meters, but look, it says it's 9.326 meters, so 9326. Now the way that we correct that is to do a little bit of maths. So on this drawing, I'm actually going to get my calculator out. So I've got my phone in front of me with a calculator, and I'm going to divide what the measurement should be, 5 meters, by what it actually is. So I'm just going to get my calculator out, and I'm going to first type in 5,000, which is what this should be. You can see 5 meters. So I'm going to type in 5,000 and then divide by 9326.9. 9326.9, and then equals, and now I've got a scale factor. So I've calculated a scale factor using my phone, and the scale factor is 0.536. So if you divide 5,000 by this number, you get a scale factor of 0.536. So obviously everybody's scale factor will be different, but this is what happens if you bring in a PDF. You don't know how big it is, but you do have a scale bar. And now that we know the scale factor, we can select it, type in scale, hit enter, select the base point, and then type in the scale factor like every other time we've scaled. So 0.536 and hit enter. And now if we do the same thing, dimension linear, click at the end, zoom in and click this end, 4999.2. So that's as close as I'm going to get, and I'm very happy with that level of accuracy. Again, it's 1 in every 5,000. It's 1 millimeter out, or 0.8 of a millimeter out over 5,000 millimeters. So I'm happy that this is at the correct scale. If this didn't have a scale bar, just imagine this didn't have a scale bar for a second. I'm just going to Control Z and make this big again, because I want to imagine that this scale bar doesn't exist, because sometimes you may either have a JPEG or you may have a PDF that doesn't have a scale bar. If you don't have a scale bar, then you have to become a bit of an investigator, and you have to try and find something in your drawing that could suggest a scale. So there are lots of things within buildings that are modular. There are lots of things within buildings that have set sizes. One of them is a kitchen. So kitchen worktops are always, or nearly always, 60 centimeters deep or 600 millimeters deep. Now if you have a section, a kitchen worktop is nearly always 900 millimeters tall. From the worktop to the floor is 900 millimeters. So you can use something like that in order to be able to scale something. The trick is to be able to find out what something is measured at currently and know what it should be. So right now, my kitchen worktop is over 1 meter deep, and I know in real life it would be 600 millimeters. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get use the original size first, so that's 600. I've got my phone open on the calculator app. 600 divided by 1117.47 equals, and this time it's the same scale factor, because I just control Z. I control Z from the last time we scaled it, but the scale factor is 0.536. So 0.536. So that's another way of being able to find the scale factor, is to find something in the drawing that you are confident of the scale of. It could be a door width. Now door widths vary obviously, but they're nearly always between 800 millimeters and 700 millimeters. So there's a bit more variety there, but you can be confident that a door width is normally between one of those two. And if you went 750, then you're going to be, quite close. So we've got the scale factor using the kitchen worktop. We measured the actual kitchen worktop as it's been imported into CAD and realized that it was nearly twice the size that it should be. We got our calculator. We knew what size it should be. It should be 600. So we typed in 600 divided by 1117.47, and then the answer that we were given, the scale factor that we got, was 0.536. And we can click on our PDF, type SC and hit enter for scale, select the base point, and then the scale factor, 0.536, and hit enter. And then again, we'll just do it to check. Let's see if this is correct. Let's scale 598.96, so 599 millimeters. Again, in terms of accuracy, in terms of being able to, there's a wall thickness, there's a line thickness there that could account for a little bit of the difference. That is just over 1 millimeter out in every 500 millimeters, every 600 millimeters. So that's accurate enough for me, and I'm happy with that. So that's another way that you're able to scale, and you can do exactly the same thing using a JPEG. The only difference is that instead of inserting a PDF underlay, you insert a raster image, and you can go and find your raster image wherever that may be. Let's go to references and see what we have. Here's a plan. Open. Specify on screen. Okay. And then instead of it inserting a PDF like this, we've inserted a plan. And we would do the same thing again. I would go to, I'll first of all change the opacity a little bit, just so that, let's see what that, I've changed the opacity, but it's not changed anything on the screen. But what I would do is I would zoom in and I would use this area to confirm the dimension. So as we said previously, this is a kitchen worktop. I know because I can see it. It should be 600, but as I've inserted the drawing, it is 142.6. So I'd do the same thing again. I would type in on my calculator 142.6 divided by, 600, which is the target, divided by 142.6, and that makes my scale factor 4.2. So if I scale this drawing by 4.2, selected, SC and hit enter, select my base point, and then 4.2, that makes this drawing accurate. That makes this drawing to scale. I think that we have gone through how to download a CAD map from Digimap, how to manipulate a Digimap within AutoCAD, so how to turn layers on and off, and how to change line weights and line types using the layers and the isolate and the unisolate function. We've spoken about how a more attractive Digimap can be created by exporting this information, so saving it as a PDF, so printing it as a PDF using the layout tools that we looked at last week, or saving it as a DWG and opening those in either Photoshop or Illustrator, which we will look at in the next few weeks, and how to scale a PDF. So either to scale it from the scale factor, trying the scale factor as a 1 when we insert, so insert PDF underlay, choosing a PDF of some sort, and then choosing the input scale factor as 1. We've also tried to show what you do when a PDF comes in but you don't know the scale of it, or it comes in and it is, you've checked using the dimension tool and it is the wrong scale. we have to get our calculators out and do a little bit of maths in order to determine a scale factor. And as soon as we have the scale factor, we can scale the PDF accordingly. And similarly with JPEG drawings. So all of that will hopefully be quite helpful for your case study drawings. So with that, that is the introduction to AutoCAD complete. Digi courses are always an opportunity to introduce a piece of software and to help you all feel a little bit more comfortable using a piece of software. I think that we could probably sit here every single week for 2 or 3 years and still not teach you everything to do with a piece of software. So these courses, these lessons have a degree of limitation, but I hope that as we have gone through AutoCAD and as we now go through our subsequent pieces of software, SketchUp, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, we will be able to introduce all of those pieces of software to you so that you feel a little bit more familiar with them and feel a little bit more confident using them. What I would recommend is utilizing YouTube as a resource. So YouTube is an amazing resource for being able to find any help that you may need. I've clicked on YouTube and just gone into the search function just to have give you a really quick example. Something really simple like how to draw a circle in AutoCAD. There are loads and loads and loads of videos about how to draw circles. Obviously some quite complex things in AutoCAD. So I'm just using that as an example to show you that if you have any questions about how to use this software or any other piece of software, that AutoCAD has some really good videos, and you can see lots of them are really short. So as you're doing a drawing, if you come up against anything that you aren't sure about or you need help with, then I think one of the best things that you can do is watch YouTube videos that try to help you through that process. One of the obvious benefits is that you're able to pause and replay and try and carry out whatever actions they're telling you to do simultaneously with the video, which I think is a really good way of learning. So that is AutoCAD done, an introduction to AutoCAD done. Next week we will be working on we'll be having the same structure in terms of having lessons recorded, and you can tell that I'm filling time because I don't want to say the wrong thing. So lesson 6 is SketchUp. So we'll be having 2 lessons of SketchUp. The first one is an introduction to SketchUp, and then we'll be looking at the principal tools. So we'll almost be repeating the same thing that we've done with AutoCAD, but hopefully now that you've been using AutoCAD for a few weeks, you'll feel a bit more comfortable going into something like SketchUp. SketchUp is a lot less technical and much more creative, and it's much more about being able to create a 3D object that has perspective and that you can use to either create isometrics or trace over or even produce renders and other things like that. But we'll be looking at SketchUp next week and the week after, and then we'll finish with the Adobe suite, so that's InDesign, Photoshop and Illustrator.